Alrighty, so dancers, dancer families, we are talking about putting the satin tips on today. The reason why we put the satin tips on is because the satin on the pointe shoe itself, when you're doing pointe work, will get very frayed all around the edges of the platform. A lot of people will put on suede tips, and my dancer does not prefer suede tips. She likes the feel of the satin and how it's easier for her to turn using the satin. So we found a beautiful satin that is about the same color as her shoes. That's what we're using today. But what is on this particular shoe is a cream colored satin, and you don't even notice the difference in color on stage. I've even seen some professionals who will cut on their pointe shoe. Instead of putting a tip on at all, they will cut out the satin off of the platform of the shoe and then just dance on the cotton and glue that's underneath. Alright, so first thing we did was we made ourselves a template. This is just a piece of cardboard that I laid down on the table, and I laid the shoe down and I rolled over, and I made sure that I was not covering any of the sole. All right. And then all I did was roll the cardboard back up onto here and made enough of an ellipse so that it would go up over top of the actual platform. All right. So that's what we're going to do first. We have a selvage edge and we have a raw edge for those of you who know how to sew. It does not matter which edge you use because you're going to singe them because it's satin and it frays. So when you do make your satin template though, we're going to make it on the wrong side of the satin. So we have a dull side and a shiny side. So we're going to draw on the dull side of the satin, just with a regular pencil. Make sure your pencil's not too sharp because then it will want to pull on the fabric and your tracing will not be as accurate as it should be. All right, so here's our tracing, and I'm going to cut that out right on the line because I made the template itself large enough. Okay, so here we have our satin piece all cut out and ready. Next thing you need is something to glue the satin piece to and to glue it to the pointe shoe. I do not use regular old liquid glue. This is a heat and bond, which is a fusible webbing. You can use any brand that you want, but whatever brand you use, make sure it is very strong. Heat and bond brand makes a light, L-I-T-E variety, and do not use that. It will not hold up to all the friction and sliding around that the pointe shoe tip goes through. So we're going to open this up, unroll it a little bit. So you've got a shiny side and you've got a dull paper side. We're going to trace on the dull paper side, and we're going to use our same template that we did before, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did on the satin. We're just going to trace around it on the paper side and then cut it out. All right, so now we've got our piece of heat and bond or fusible webbing brand, whatever you're using, cut out, and we have our satin cut out. What we're going to do now is we're going to singe the edges of the satin all the way around so that they don't fray. Please, adults only with this. This is not for you kids. You want to make sure that you don't really want to get it blackened. This is a little bit brown here, and you don't want to melt it so much that it like goes way inside. A little bit brown like that, you won't really notice it. If you get some black on it, and it's a brand new shoe, obviously you're going to notice it when it's on the shoe, but eventually the shoes, unfortunately, it get dirty and you won't even notice that it's a black mark from you burning versus a black mark from your dance floor.
And with our dance floors, the shoes get dirty very quickly. Like it especially if you're just going to use them for stage really quick or something like that, because the stage is black, like they get dirty really fast.
All right, so now we've got our piece of satin all singed and beautiful. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take the dull side of the satin and you're going to take the shiny side of the heat and bond and you're going to put them together. And we will go down to the iron and we're going to iron them together. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so we've got the iron heated up. It's on the wool setting, no steam. The heat and bond that I use likes you to use a cooler setting than wool. Generally, they say a silk satin setting is best. I found that I need to keep the iron on the platform a lot longer than I should if I use it on the cooler setting. So I like to keep it on the wool setting. It goes much quicker. So we put the shiny side of the heat and bond to the dull side of the satin. And we're going to place satin down onto the ironing board. And we're going to iron right on top of this paper backing. All right. And it doesn't take long. You really don't need to push. Okay. And here it's all good and on. Now, if you want to zoom in here even, you can see how the paper backing does not quite go to the edge of the satin. That's okay. You can see how the satin does not quite go to the edge of the paper backing. That's okay too. We're just going to trim it up. And wherever we trim the satin, like here, we're going to trim the satin here. After we trim the satin, then we're just going to singe it again a little bit. Don't worry about the paper being on there. Leave the paper on. It'll be perfectly fine. Okay? So we're just going to even everything out a little bit. And if you don't do this step, you will have sticky parts on your platform. You'll have sticky parts on your platform that just will not work well with dancing. And you'll have pieces of satin without sticky parts. And they're going to pull away from the shoe, which is going to be a real hassle for your dancer. And one more cut. Okay, now we're just going to singe a little bit here and there while we trim the satin, just so we don't have any fraying going on. Alrighty, now I need to clear my scraps out of the way and we'll get to putting it on the pointe shoe. Alrighty, so we've got everything trimmed and singed and I've got the brand new pointe shoe. No satin tip on it besides what the shoe came with, obviously. And we peel the paper backing off. And now you've got sticky side underneath the paper backing. So you've got shiny side of satin, which is going to be showing on the shoe. Now, you want to place your satin tip as close as you can get to the sole without being on the sole itself, okay? And when I start to iron, I iron right here, just to start with, just to get it glued down a little bit so I can let go.
Won't the sticky part just stick to the shoe?
The sticky part on here? Mm-hmm. That's the point. We want the sticky part to stick onto the shoe.
No, yeah, but you said that you need to iron so that stays on. Why doesn't the sticky part
because
just stick
it's not
to the shoe?
it's not a peel and stick kind of thing.
Oh.
It's not sticky right now. It is sticky when it gets heated up.
Oh, okay.
All right. So again, wool setting, no steam. And we do it as quick as possible because, oh, look how that's going into the creases here so nicely. Pleats, yes. All right. And we want to do this as quickly as possible because there is glue inside the shoe itself. That's what holds this whole section is called the box, and the platform is part of the box. So that's what holds the whole box and platform together is glues. And
it's just layers of fabric and glue and layers of fabric and glue. There is no wood. It is a common misconception, but there is no wood.
Right. So what we need to do is work as quickly as possible with the heat, because the heat will start to break down the glue that's already in the shoe. And we don't want the platform to get squishy, because my little dancer, tell them what happens when the platform gets squishy.
You can't dance on it anymore. It's not swerve enough and it's called dead.
All right, so I generally like to hold the iron up instead of like doing it like this, because when I hold the iron up, I can see what the iron is touching on the shoe. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you always push to the outside. If you push from the outside in, you're likely to get bubbles. So you always want to push from the inside out. Okay?
Bubbles are bad because it makes it hard to balance.
Yes, even if it's just fabric. All right, so we work from the tip of the platform to the edges on the top of the shoe first. Do not do these side edges yet. You want to make sure you get everything else good and glued down first. And then I'll show you the little trick that I use for the edges. All right, so if I were to just iron this down, I would end up with a big old pleat and it would look nasty, and it probably wouldn't be so easy to dance on. So I make a little cut so that I can fold this edge down and this edge up and then iron it, and it stays nice and neat and flat. I would not suggest cutting out like a triangle shape and then having the seams like this, only close to the shoe you would have the seam. That may start tearing away on you, which is the whole point to putting on the satin tip in the first place. So the easiest way for you to figure out where you should make this cut is to push down the top portion first, and then push in, and then open it back up. And this little crease right here is the crease that you're going to trim.
Like wrapping the corners of a present.
Yes. And then you see this will go down nicely, and this will go over top of it, and it's just beautiful. Okay.
And
so,
you do not feel that crease when you're dancing at all.
Good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull this bottom piece away, because we don't want that to get heated yet, and we're not going to touch the iron to it. All right. And then we're going to do this. We're going to start at the top here with the iron, and we're going to work our way down, working from the center of the platform. All right. There we go, right over top of the pleats. And make sure the glue is all melted and spread around. This is where the tip of your iron comes in very handy. And make sure you get right up to that cut, where the cut ends. All right, now we've got our pleats in here that are on the actual shoe itself. And after I get this piece ironed down, I will show you how to get into those pleats so that this piece of satin is bonded even better. Now, before we get to that though, we're going to fold this over, and we're going to start at the top here, and we're going to work our way down. All right. So start right at this seam right here that we just created. See? And get that corner really good, because the corners really do not like to stay down. And there we go.
And is it okay if the iron touches the sole?
It is. This is a leather sole. It will not hurt it in the least. Like I said, just with the rest of the shoe though, you don't want to keep heat on it for very long. And we are working again from the inside to the outside, making sure everything gets smoothed. That glue that is on that heat and bond or whatever fusible webbing you're using will spread just a tiny little bit. So here we are. We're all done with that. Now I'm going to show you how to get into the pleats. Are you at the good angle to see like where the pleats are underneath? Okay. So we're going to start with this front one right here. If your shoe even has pleats. Some point shoes do not have pleats. They just use a piece of fabric that goes straight up over. And it's a very beautiful, clean line. However, this shoe has pleats. So you want to turn the iron sideways so that the very edge of your iron is pushing into the pleat like this, okay? And you just go ahead and you work that in, and you do each and every one.
Do you have to?
You don't have to, but it bonds. It's more glued surface area. And since this is a portion of the shoe that gets a lot of wear and tear, whenever you see a frayed point shoe, it's inevitably this portion and on the sides right here that is frayed first. So the more glued down area you can have, the better. But no, you don't have to do this step. It shows off the pleats a little bit, so it helps to mask the fact that you have another piece of satin on there. But other than that, no, you don't need to do that. There you are. Gorgeous. Now we'll work on the other side and then we'll show you the finished product. Here we are, all finished, satin on, and as you can tell, you're really not even going to see that when you're on stage.
Yeah, there's a big color difference on camera, but it's really, in person, it's like it's the exact same color. You cannot even tell.
You won't even be able to tell, especially on a stage.
Yeah.
Never, even with the cream colored satin, you could not even tell. And there you have it.